James, we want to talk a little bit about England and some of the points that we need to make ahead of this because they've not impressed so far. So are we going to see a different England now that it comes to the knockout rounds? Is there anything to suggest that there will be that from them?
Well, there's a bit of recent history in that, there was a marked level in improvement in their performance in the last two tournaments. They weren't amazing in the group stage at the last Euros, and then they went and beat Germany 2-0 at Wembley, and that was a big moment for England because they don't have a great history of beating big teams in knockout matches. And then even in Qatar, when again they weren't great in the group stage, obviously drew 0-0 with the US, and then they beat Wales in the final group game, but they really took their game to another level by beating Senegal 3-0 quite comfortably in Al Bayt. So there is that to draw on, and I suppose there is also the argument that they can't really get any worse than they've been so far. I mean, defensively they've been pretty resilient, but against three fairly ordinary sides. So it's really the attacking element of it that you just, you sort of want to hope to see some greater cohesion. I don't think there's going to be radical changes to the lineup. I think from what I'm told tonight, there might be one change. Kobbie Mainoo maybe coming into the midfield. I don't think there's going to be anything else. Possible Palmer or Gordon might get in, but I think he wants to go with that four that he's picked in every game to this point. Up top, Kane, Bellingham, Saka and Foden, and I hope that they can find some greater understanding than they've shown in the first three matches.
We're just taking a look at a possible starting 11 from you, James, here, and you've obviously mentioned that the changes that we might see when it does come to this. Jurgen, I just want to talk to you about this group because it's undeniably so talented, the names that you can see here. How does Gareth Southgate get the best out of them?
Well, you look obviously at the lineup or a possible lineup, and you see so much quality in that English side that you wonder, why can't they kind of play on a much higher level than they actually, at least the first three games played. I really have the hope. I have the hope that they kind of switch gear in a certain moment. Some players take more ownership of the game. If it's coming from the back with Stones and into midfield, obviously Bellingham should be all over the place, and Rice, and then obviously there's Harry Kane there that is a goal machine. So it's something that they have to find on the inside of the group, on the inside of their team. Yeah, absolutely, the manager plays his part of it. But, when you see the progression from Russia to the Euros, then when they lost the final against Italy in the penalties, then they played a decent, good World Cup in Qatar. And now they are in these Euros. You just wish for them that they come on now, step it up, show me some extra pieces of your qualities that you undoubtedly have, and make yourself a real contender to win the Euros in Germany. This is what they are capable to do. They are capable to do that, but we're still waiting for this ignition.
Obviously, James, you were today at the press conference with Gareth Southgate and Harry Kane. Is there anything that stood out, particularly from the coach?
Well, I mean, he's trying to paint this sort of picture of calmness. This is kind of what he does at this stage of the tournament, really, and distance himself from what he calls the noise, and trying to say that he's not heard any of the criticism or is kind of oblivious to what's been said about the team's performances. I mean, we kind of know that isn't true because we know that the players in the camp have been talking about it. You've got to remember 12 of these 26-man squad have never been to a senior tournament before. And a lot of them are quite young, and to sort of separate them from their phones for 4 or 5 weeks while they're out here is just not realistic. And I think they've been seeing quite a lot of the criticism, particularly I think the first game when they won, there was a bit of a backlash to just how badly they played in that game, even though they beat Serbia. And I think that really took them by surprise. And then it obviously went to another level with the Denmark game when they were really lucky to get a draw. So I think it has been a topic of conversation within the camp, but when Gareth comes to speak to us, he sort of tries to paint this picture of the group are isolated from it. They can play golf, they can play paddle, they can go and do whatever they like around the camp and sort of switch off and then switch on again when it comes to obviously the games themselves. So both of them are quite relaxed. Harry Kane talked quite well about his record. I think it's 6 in 6 knockout matches for him. He tends to He's tried to sort of tailor his training to peak in these knockout rounds, and he's got a track record of doing that. So I think what they're trying to do is rely a little bit on their sort of recent pedigree, if you like. Obviously, we know they got to the final of the last Euros, semi of the World Cup before that, quarter of the last World Cup. They've got experience now in the squad of, or particularly in that first 11 anyway, of knockout round matches, what you need to do to get over the line in tournaments. And I think they take comfort from the fact that you can't win the tournament in the group stage, and just as well, given the way that England have been playing. So I think they feel within them that they've got the ability to go and peak and take that game to another level. But as Gareth said earlier, they've now got to go and prove it. I asked him a question about, no one will forget. No one will remember the group stage if they suddenly switch on and they beat Slovakia comfortably tomorrow, and then everybody's been talking about them as favourites and the bracket and the side of the draw and all this kind of stuff. It'll all flip with one narrative. And he sort of said, that is the reality, but they have to go and prove it. And there is a major question mark about whether they can kick on and really start playing well, given the level they've produced so far.
Well, they are heavy favourites heading into this clash, England against Slovakia. And that's not just with the odds makers, it's also with the ESPN FC panel as well. James, we thought we would show you the predictions across the board. Everyone's saying it will be a 2-0 win for England. None of us actually spoke or consulted one another before this. What's your reaction to this, James?
Well, again, it's just, did anyone watch the first 3 games? Or are we just doing this off, the recent record? I mean, I have to say, I did the YouTube show earlier on, right? I think it was just before the first game, and everybody then was saying to me, this is it, this is England's time. And I was very, pessimistic probably. I was cautiously optimistic, let's put it that way, tilt it that way. Because they have got a good team. They have got a manager who's got the experience of negotiating these tournaments. He understands it. He is an effective communicator. But they haven't proved it. They don't have a good record on foreign soil. Euro 96 was at Wembley. 66, the only tournament they've ever won, was at Wembley. The final of the last Euros, that whole tournament, apart from one game, was at Wembley. They don't have a history of A, doing it on foreign soil, and B, beating big nations. Now, they're not going to necessarily have to do that by the looks of it, given the bracket that they're in. But having all the confidence in the studio there is being taken on just the individuals, and they have to come together as a team. And I was also in the Slovakia press conference earlier, actually, before Gareth and Harry came in, and they were very focused on the collective. They believe they've got a team, whereas England are perhaps the much better group of individuals. No one denied that. They were all quite clear that there's a golfing quality there. But they are a unit, Slovakia. They do work for each other, and there is a cohesion and a structure to them that we really haven't seen from England yet. And what does worry me a little bit is they are improvising. Gareth Southgate is improvising. He came into this tournament trying Trent Alexander-Arnold in midfield. It didn't work. He threw on Conor Gallagher to start in that change against Slovenia. He took him Mainu in the second half of that game. It looks like he's going with Mainu tomorrow, and so there's a lot of unknowns. If it clicks, then 2-0 could look could look conservative tomorrow. They could put on a real performance, but it's a bit of a leap of faith at the moment to suggest that it's going to, with any confidence that's definitely going to happen.